and out of your greatest pain can come your mission and your purpose.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so you started out as an RN, you said?
Yes. Yes.
And in my mind, having worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, an RN is not usually where the world of entrepreneurs is seeded from, right? So I find that
Right.
really interesting. And then you moved from RN. What was the next? You started a company.
Well,
Can you expanding?
there was quite a bit between that.
Okay.
Um, my husband and I were married 8 years before our children came along. Both of our children are adopted, and we went through a lot of fertility studies. And the one thing that I had not changed was I'd had several kind of high stress positions in nursing. I worked intensive and coronary care, and I
Wow.
loved what I did, but there was a certain amount of stress, and so I
Yes.
have a lot of interests and talents, and one of the things that I wanted to explore more was the artistic side. My
Mhm.
mother is an artist and always has been. And so I stopped working outside the home while we were trying to conceive children, just to lower that stress level.
Sure.
And I became a working artist. And after a while, I was doing oil portraits. I taught portraits. And somewhere in there, we adopted our two children. And there came a point where my husband kind of looked at me and said, you know, we're set up to be a two-income family.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I was not real happy about that.
Okay.
I will admit to you, I was really kind of ticked off about that. And so I remember getting down on the floor with the newspaper, looking at the want ads. And in there was an ad for a small publisher who wanted writers, editors, typists. Well, I watch my hands while I type, but I'm fairly fast. And I had edited the high school newspaper, and I had written my whole life. Oh, and they had the artists in there too. That was the big.
Okay.
So I packed up my portfolio and I went on an interview. And they said to me, how would you like to do art on computer? Now, this is the mid 80s.
Okay.
Like,
Wow. Oh, wow.
and you know, desktop publishing was not even a thing.
Yeah.
And on my resume, I remember putting at the very bottom of my resume that I could use a personal computer. Now, personal computers back then were like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
They were like a piece of furniture.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you know, every program had different commands, and so
Yeah.
it was the wild, wild west. But I thought, I'll put that on my resume. And they
That
said,
was
well,
so smart of you.
oh my gosh, it changed my life.
Yeah. I
That
can see.
one action, it
Wow.
changed my life.
Pay
Um,
attention, ladies. It's always the subtlest thing that makes the biggest difference. Sorry to interject, but it's true.
no, it's true. It's true. It was an afterthought. And when I put that in there, it qualified me to work on computers. And this
Oh,
wonderful company that I joined was all Macintosh based. I didn't even know what a Macintosh was.
lucky you. I mean, really, for an artist, you landed in the
Oh,
right place for sure. That's crazy. I
it
love
was
that. It's a synchronicity.
awesome.
You were open to that. That's wonderful.
You know, I have had coaches who say yes and take a step.
Yes.
And this is
Mm.
what kind of my whole journey has been. when a door opens
Mm.
and I see an opportunity, it's okay, let's say yes and take a step. Let's walk in and see what this is like. And this wonderful company was headed up by a married couple, and they were what was known as a development house. What that is in the publishing industry is they worked for children's textbook publishers, the big names. And in those days, before those companies have all devoured each other,
Yeah.
and conglomerate, become these big monopolies, there were a bunch of them: Macmillan, Silver Burdett and Ginn,
Yep.
just a bunch of these different companies. And this particular company would get jobs from those big companies and they'd say, okay, we need a math program. We want to publish it in 2 years. You guys put it together. And so they'd always had writers and editors, but they had never had a production department, which means we would put things into the format that would go to
Yes.
the printer.
Yeah.
Artists and, actual page layout and design, which of course I knew absolutely nothing about.
Yeah. Wow, you fell into an incredible opportunity.
And it was a dream it, do it company. These
Great.
people were true entrepreneurs.
Mm.
I remember standing in line at the printer one day in the office and saying, it would really speed up our process if we had 2 laser printers. And the next day there was another laser printer. Nowadays, a laser printer is a couple $100 at most.
Oh,
Then it was like $5,000.
yeah,
So
that's amazing.
it was incredible. It was so exciting to be in that opportunity and to grow with that company. And I think, you said as an RN, that doesn't really fit with entrepreneurship,
Yeah,
but
usually.
that heart to
Oh,
be a pioneer and
yeah.
to be on the cutting edge and to start new things. That's me, probably more of a sprinter than a marathon runner. But I loved what we did because every project was new. And because I was allowed to be in on high level decisions,
Yeah.
because we're a small company. And they rewarded us well. They sent my family and I to Disney World for 5 days after we completed a 2-year project that pretty much made that company.
Wow.
So I learned a
I'm so
lot from them.
pleased to hear this. It sounds just so graceful and ease. Everything about you is just so delightful. And it's like you just open up to this kind of energy in the world that carried you. But I know you've also had trials. So let's keep going in the story. This is great. But I love that it kind of started out like you landed in the right place. You really did. I mean, that would
Definitely.
have been to me like a dream come true. And you did it. The other thing that's interesting to me is you didn't fight your husband on this. And that is interesting to me because had you done that, you might have won. And where would you be today? So it's just interesting the decisions we make and where they lead us. So go on.
You made an interesting observation. Had I fought that and had I not followed that little one ad in our small town newspaper down in Arkansas, of all places, really, I would not only have deprived myself of developing a skill set that served me very well through the years, but I would also have deprived a lot of other people because I have gone on and helped, I don't know how many people probably close to a dozen now, get their books into print and help them write, edit their books. I've edited for other companies, but I've done a lot of freelance work too. But those skills that I learned way back in the 80s and the 90s have allowed me to help other people get their message out.
That's great. Well, I may be a good candidate for that. I'm just about ready for editing. That's the
Ah,
painful part.
we can
So it's
talk.
nice to have people who have gone before you. So, and again, I just want to say this to the audience. This is one of the reasons that I'm doing this, because as you learn from other women and you see, wow, they did it neatly, they did it messily, they kept saying yes, or, these are the stories of in the trenches, real women, and you can follow that lead and follow that energy and reach out for help. And now everyone I talk to, just like you, Mary Jo, they want to help. So I just appreciate you being here, and I want to reiterate that again. But
Oh,
carry on
thank
with
you.
your story, and I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, you're not interrupting at all. I love where you take this. Um, I think, one of the lessons that has served me well, is that you don't need to know what you're doing. Um, when I talk about, oh gosh, uh, different things that I've done, and there were some that I didn't even throw in there into that long list, like the document scanning company.
Mhm.
Okay, that was when was that? 2003. Now, in 2003, people questioned what a PDF was
Yes.
and whether it was legal.
Safe.
What was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was safe. What is document scanning? And this was a case where a friend of mine out in Colorado, actually, um, her son was graduating from college and he didn't want to live in Denver, but he needed some kind of business. And he heard about somebody, I think out of Colorado Springs, who was doing document scanning and who wanted to license different branches of it, not branches, but licensees for that throughout the
Mhm.
country. And she faxed me the kind of the pro forma, which was not real formal, but the numbers on it. And my son came home from college and he looked at this and he said, "What is this?" And I told him, and he said, "I think we ought to take a look." And so, long story short, we ended up buying the licensee for the state of Indiana, Ohio, and I think the Chicago area for document scanning. I knew nothing. We went out there for 5 days. We learned the process. We bought a scanner. We brought it home, transformed our walkout basement into our production facility. And as we picked up jobs, and our niche was, all this guy did was real estate, mortgage, and title companies, because they're all the same
Oh,
type
wow.
of documents. And
That's
everybody at that point produced paper. So
You're
we
taking
learned it.
me back to, I don't remember what I was selling at the time, but I
Mhm.
remember I would go into title companies and
Mhm.
they would have literally stacks of papers up
Yes.
against the wall, all over the desk. I mean, it was a
Oh,
different
yeah.
world then. And everything, the quantities of like legal pads and
Oh,
it was just a totally different world. We forget that the things
yeah.
that we take for granted and do just like that were an entire business.
Yeah, less than 20 years ago.
Yeah,
The
isn't that
world has changed so much. Yeah.
okay? So what happened with that business?
Well, um, my son was in college. My daughter had moved home. So she ran the scanning end of it. We started in the summertime. So my son and I did sales. He went to one region, I went to another. And eventually we landed a title company in the Chicago area that had a huge warehouse they wanted to empty out. And we got that job.
Oh,
That meant that we could no longer work out of our walkout basement because we were going to have semis delivering,
that's
you know.
insane.
So
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
You
so
grew exponentially overnight.
we did, but uh, we were not priced correctly. Um,
Pay attention.
this is
Lady.
ding, ding, ding,
Yeah.
right? Um, the man who helped us start wanted all his licensees to be so successful that he would go with us on early sales calls and he would price these jobs really low.
Yeah.
And because he owned his business or his building, I don't know, I was very naive, right?
Mhm.
And he didn't really figure in all the costs. So when we went to a commercial lease and everything, we were kind of breaking even. Once in a while, we would make money.
Oh, that's so
But
painful.
yeah. And then the recession hit, 2008, 2009. And we were fortunate to stay open. And at one point, it was really cool. We landed a big job. And at the same time, everybody else got laid off. And so on a Saturday, I went to bed with a terrible headache on a Friday night because I didn't know how I was going to pay payroll. I didn't know how I was going to pay any bills. I thought, this is just absolutely awful. We should close. I didn't look at my email. Saturday, I got up, I looked at my email, and there was a notification that we had just received a huge job. And could we pick up 300 boxes of documents from a great big insurance company Monday morning at 9:00? And I'm like, okay, say yes, take a step. How do we do this?
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there for a second because what she just said, anyone who's listening to this approach of say yes and take a step, and you build the plane as you're falling, or you grow the wings or whatever,
Mhm.
because otherwise you can't move fast enough. It's so much better to move fast and fail. And so tell me a little bit about your mindset, because when you describe it, it doesn't sound like that big. You go to bed with a headache, you're like, okay, we're going to give up. But inside, you must have
Oh
been
my gosh.
torn apart. I mean, that's a huge lot. You've got a huge liability because you've got a lease on a commercial building. So how did you deal with this mentally?
Well, not only a lease on a commercial building, but both my children worked for the company by
Salary.
that point.
Yeah.
So this was their full-time income. And I could fall back on my husband at that point, but we had 2 kids who were depending on us. And I just felt terrible. We had a couple employees who I think by that point I had kind of laid off. And sometimes I paid them even to not work because I could do that, I thought.
I was going to say, and it doesn't even matter when they're not your kids, because you
Oh,
feel like you're building a kingdom where
we
they
are.
are relying on you, and you care, you care.
Yeah.
So you're being ripped to pieces.
The,
What did you do in your head to deal with this before you got the good news? Or
the
did you
burden
just go
was
like,
so great.
yeah,
Uh, the burden was so great. It was overwhelming. And at that point, I thought, I'm just not going to think about it. And that's why I went home with a headache, that's not my way of coping normally. So, it had to be pretty bad.
yeah.
And at that point, when we got the commercial lease, we moved the company from northern Indiana, where we lived and had a house, to Indianapolis, about 2 hours away.
Mm,
Um, so my husband commuted during on weekends. So, it was not an ideal situation
yeah.
by any means, but at that point, our marriage was pretty good. So,
Mm,
um, eh, it was it was like I was letting him down, I was letting the kids down, I was letting the employees that we had down. I couldn't see a way out. So when I opened that email and I went, holy cow, we can do this. How can we
right,
do this? um,
right.
Lining up the truck to pick up the documents was not hard. I just
Yeah.
called my son and I said, grab a bunch of your buddies, because we need a bunch of strong backs and arms that we can load this stuff and line up a truck. The other thing was the time frame on this job was very fast. It was a very quick turnaround, like maybe 6 weeks on 300 boxes. And I'm like, whoa. Um, I put an ad out on Craigslist for 3 hours and got 17 applicants,
Oh,
shut the ad off,
wow.
told them to be there Tuesday, because obviously we're picking up documents on Monday. I be there on Tuesday, told my daughter, okay, this is going to be a combination training and application process. You handle it. She did, and she's very introverted. So I was like, oh Lord, how's this going to go? She did super.
Mm,
We had one young man who showed up in a white shirt and a tie, all dressed up. I don't know what he thought he was coming for, but it was not a good fit for him.
mhm.
Because what I needed was for people to pull staples and paper clips and organize pages.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, but we ended up with 16 people, many of whom had been laid off of or fired from high-powered positions. We had people with double master's degrees. We had um, a development director from a non-for-profit. We had incredibly qualified, overqualified people, accountants, who they were in shell shock, really,
Sure.
because that recession hit so hard
Yeah.
that I had a married couple, neither one of them was working. We actually, in that job, put bread on people's tables.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And better than that, we brought people together it was fun. They were
Yeah.
intelligent. They had great conversation. It was uplifting for all of us. And we made it a really good
Oh my
atmosphere. And
gosh, I love that.
oh,
I love that. So again, another big takeaway, like you never know what action, and this is something I think about and I talk about a lot when I'm working with clients that I just want to mention, is that we we often fall into what we need, what we have to get. But when you're thinking about what am I providing, it's almost like the ways open up
Yeah.
for us to become like that vehicle for other people. And right in the middle, like you could easily have said, oh my gosh, that's not going to be enough, forget it, the burden's too big. But
Mhm.
no, you stepped into it, you kept moving forward. Like to your point, you said yes, took a step, and then look what happened. Magic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so go on. So
Well,
did you end up
I
selling this company, or what happened with this company?
ultimately, after 9 years, my daughter, and she was my production director. She
Mm.
ran the operation. I did sales, and my son moved on into real estate investing. So it was kind of my daughter and I. And oh my gosh, my accountant used to say, you know, you're either hot dogs or steak. Hamburger is good. He said, you're either down here or you're way up here.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
Wow, do I understand that? I think most
oh,
entrepreneur, yeah, okay. So
it it's
yeah, it's
it's
a
we
process.
never, yeah, and because of the type of industry that is, um, you do have a certain number of predictable jobs. I had customers that stayed with me the whole 10 years, and beyond. But there were every year several great big jobs, and
Mm,
then you get them done, and then it's like, okay,
feast or
what's
famine.
next?
Yeah.
What's next? So it carried its own level of stress. It carried its own level of financial liability, truthfully. Um, I know,
Check.
I mean, I can look at that,
Mhm.
and my husband agreed with this too. If all we did with that company was launch our kids into where they're at now, it was worth it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, because my daughter is now the operations director for a good sized accounting firm out in Seattle. And
Wow.
she is so capable that I always told her it'll take 3 people to replace you. So when she came to me and she said, Mom, I have an opportunity I can't pass up.
Mm.
Um, Shortly after that, my husband looked at me and said, where do you see the business in 5 years? And I said, somebody else owns it, and he said, okay, well, then let's put it up for sale. And we did. And a not-for-profit that employs people with disabilities
Oh,
purchased it.
great. Oh, I
And it was
love that.
perfect. It was perfect
Oh,
because I already employed people with disabilities. It's perfect work for,
yeah.
um, so I started up that division for them and ran that for 5 years. And that was very fulfilling work.
Mm.
It was again that entrepreneurial mindset that where I could go in, start from ground zero, and build. And when I left there, um, I feel like I left a legacy because
Oh, sure. Absolutely. That's amazing, Mary Jo. Well, okay, so let's have a little segue into this whole new, it's a totally new chapter.
yes,
Completely
that's an
different.
understatement.
Yeah. I mean, this is like everything
Yeah.
you shared up to this point. I wasn't
Mhm.
even expecting all of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So keep going. I'll try to keep my mouth shut and listen. This is
Oh,
amazing.
no, no, no. Um, well, when I was working for that not-for-profit, we were in meetings all morning one day. And I came back into my office and the message light was flashing on my phone. So I listened to the voicemail and it said, Mary, call me right away. It's an emergency. It's about your husband.
Uh-oh.
And I looked at the number and it was an out of area code number. And I thought, well, that's no biggie because my phone was out of area code. But
Mhm.
and my next thought was, this person doesn't know me because nobody calls me Mary. Everybody who knows me calls me Mary Jo.
Mm.
Um, it never occurred to me to call my husband. I thought, this is an emergency. I
He's
better
in the
call back.
hospital or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
And it had been a couple hours since that call had come through, and I'm like, oh. So I called, and the woman who answered sounded kind of young, and she said, Mary, are you sure you want to talk to me? I know you're at work. And I'm like,
Who is this? You're like, what
um,
is, you knew nothing.
you're the one who called me.
Mhm.
You said it was an emergency. And oh, by the way, who are you?
Yeah. Oh my.
And at that point, she said, my name is Kiana, and I'm having an affair with your husband. I'm like, okay.
Is
Number
that
one,
what you
I,
said? You said, you don't even remember what you said, probably. Did you see
well,
this coming at all? Like, did you have any idea?
not at all. And even when she said it, I thought, oh, yeah, right. By that time, my husband had moved down to Indianapolis. He had retired, and he had a bunch of rental properties. And they were not in the best of neighborhoods. So, I mean, there was always somebody who was behind in rent or whatever. And I thought, okay, so he's trying to evict somebody and she's trying to get back at him. What a great way to do that.
Oh, interesting that that's what entered your mind. Okay.
Well,
This is so
and
interesting. Oh my God.
it's a logical thought. If you know our
Yeah,
situation, it's a logical thought. And
sure.
she
But
said,
it
I said,
shows your level of trust to your husband, right? I mean,
oh,
that's like you did not see
yeah,
this coming at all. Okay.
no, I did not see it coming. I didn't suspect it. When I mean, what I said back to her was, um, well, I really doubt that. And she said, oh, yeah. And then she proceeded to describe the inside of my house. And
Oh,
I
really?
mean, tell me the layout of my kitchen, my living room. She described some pieces of furniture. She criticized some of my furniture, which I thought was real interesting. And I said to her, you could have seen that from the windows. And she said, oh, yeah. I've seen because we had renovated this house. She said, I've seen the special sink that he put in the bathroom for you. I've seen the glass shower, and I know that you have a bathroom in your garage. And I thought, oh, she couldn't have seen any of that from the outside. And so I'm the incurable optimist, right? So I said, okay, so you broke in. And she said, do you think I would steal from you? She said, I didn't need to steal from you. And then she proceeded to tell me intimate things about my marriage, my kids. She knew where we'd been on vacation. She told me she'd been to the house when I was taking care of my mother. Um,
Wow.
it was like,
What was her point of doing this?
thank you for asking, because that's
This
exactly what
makes
I said to her.
absolutely no sense from
She didn't
any
have any
perspective.
leverage. She had
I mean,
nothing
why
to
is she
blackmail.
contacting you?
When I asked her that, she said, um, she was mad at him because he was effing her best friend. And I'm like,
Oh,
wow,
so she's going to hurt him by telling you what he's doing. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And and
Wow.
I mean, I'm like, And you have to realize this was all taking place in like 10-15 minutes.
Sure, of course. And
Um,
you've got to be in shock, plus you're disbelieving her. What did you do? I've never heard the inside of a story like this before.
it became the first chapter in my book. I mean, it really did, with very little editing.
So what
Um,
did you do? Did she hang up? Did you hang up? Did like this is a movie
she,
now.
well, she said to me, hang on, he's texting me right now.
Oh,
Let me
Mary Jo.
get let me get a three-way call going. Don't say anything. Well,
Wow.
the call disconnected at that point. And then she rang again, and I really had to think, do I really want to see, do I really want to know this? So I picked up the phone and I hit the mute button, and I did hear my husband's voice on the other end.
Oh my God.
And
Oh, wow. After how many
um,
years of marriage was this?
44. And I mean, we started dating when we were 15. So this, by the end of it, it was a 50-year relationship. So
I am so sorry. I can't even imagine what, I don't even know what that would feel like.
when I talk about it now, and people always say, wow, how can you even talk about it? Um, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. Um, I I wouldn't I would never wish that on anybody. I would never want to go back through it. Um, but so much good has come out on the other side that I'm okay. I'm okay. I mean, I literally felt like I was holding God's hand through there, because it's a very difficult journey. I have to say, I mean, the statistics on divorce are terrible. And I never realized how much pain there is out there for men and for
Yeah,
women.
it's crazy.
I had no idea. I had no idea. I had worked for the church and set up all kinds of ministries, and I never looked at the needs of people who had been through divorce. It just was not on my radar
It
screen.
it saturates Facebook. The
Oh,
Facebook
yeah.
groups and I mean, I can't even go in there and read them. It's so eh, every third post is devastation, despair, betrayal. How
Mm.
many years? How did I not see it? Um, and then and this is something I'll want to ask you about too, but I'll save this question because I want you to keep going. We'll wait until we get into your book. Go ahead.
I My office door was open that whole time. The world outside is going on and it's the same. And my world shattered. It just blew up.
Did you
Um,
speak on that call? I mean, I'm sure the audience is dying to ask this. Like, did you say anything or did you just you listen to them talk and she didn't tell him that she had, I mean, it seemed like that was her plan to,
it was her plan. And in fact, when he got on the phone, he said, Kiana, what is wrong with you? And she accused him at that point of messing with her best friend and other people. And then she said something that I almost found humorous. She said, what was it? Well, I don't know. He was, it was very obvious to me that he talked with, I mean, what she was telling me was at least partially true. I mean, I had to put some credibility to it. And so I just, I pretty much just hung up the phone.
Wow. Did you confront him then immediately, or?
Not immediately.
Wow.
Actually, I call this
Self-control,
my
ladies.
Academy Award moment here. I had a couple of them.
Oh, an
I
Academy Award moment? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. I went out into
It's
my
not
area.
funny, but I'm proud of you.
Well, I was at work. I had employees out there. I had people who I couldn't fall apart. I mean, I couldn't. So I walked out there and somebody looked at me and they said, "Have you eaten lunch?" And I said, "No, I think I'll go home early today." And so I went back in my office and there were like, there was an hour's worth of stuff that I still had to do that I couldn't just walk out on. And I just couldn't walk out of my department. So it took me an hour to get out of there. And oh man, what do you do with that type of situation? Where do I'm Catholic. So I went to a church that I know that has a little chapel that I could just sit in and kind of process this. I mean, I couldn't really think. I couldn't really pray. I couldn't cry. I just
You were
needed
in
to
shock. Yeah.
oh
You were in
yeah.
shock.
Yeah. So I sat there and I had this mental picture of like I was a little girl and God took me by the right hand and started walking me away. And I actually, in this picture, I reached back to grab my husband's hand because he was also like a little child. And God said to me, he can't come with us, not right now. He'll come later, but he can't come with us. And then I thought, okay, I don't know where this is going, but I know we'll be okay, one way or the other. And so I went home, and the only thing I thought I could eat was chicken soup. So I fixed homemade chicken soup. And when my husband walked in the door, normally he had a routine. He would have one drink before dinner. He wasn't an alcoholic or anything, but he enjoyed one drink before dinner. And then on Monday nights, we would watch The Voice. So it was a Monday night.
Mm.
And when he went to pour that drink, I said, "Would you mind skipping that tonight? Because I got something really important to talk to you about, and I want both of us to be real clear-headed and awake." And he said, "Okay." So we took our chicken soup and we went in and sat next to each other on the sofa and we watched The Voice.
Oh, you're amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay.
No, I think that's what shock does to you.
I guess I'm sure it does. Yeah. But some
And
women would be flying into a rage, I mean, in the movies, that's what happens. I don't know.
well, I kept
Your
thinking of
self-control is amazing.
that had to be grace. I mean, really, but I
Grace
really
shock.
wanted to know. I wanted to know what was going on, because what I didn't tell you was this woman told me she was 17. And then
Oh,
I
God.
thought, holy
That's a
cow,
whole nother ball game.
that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
She told me she was 17 and that they'd had a baby together. And I
Oh.
was like, oh, we got bigger problems here than an affair. So
Was that true?
no, it was not.
Okay.
That was not. And I
God,
didn't even put that part in the book because I did not want anyone to misconstrue that. That was not true.
yeah.
She was 34 and she had 3 children, but he was not the father of any of them. And so anyway,
34. And how old was he at the time?
64. So
That's
yeah.
interesting. Wow.
Mm.
How does that happen? Okay, go on. Let's not
That's a
speculate.
very good question.
Well, I can't help but
Yeah,
thinking about these things. I mean, you're bringing up some pretty heated issues here, you
yeah.
know? Um, anyway, go on.
I, as the voice ended, he actually took the clicker and turned the TV off, which would have been quite unusual anyway, because normally we would have talked during commercials or something. He turned to me and he said, "Okay, what's this important thing we need to talk about?" And I took a deep breath and I said, "Well, I received some disturbing phone calls today at work. And whether or not this is true, um, we need to really talk about something." And I said, "Who's Kiana?" And so you have to picture us. We're side by side
I
on the sofa.
am picturing you. Yeah.
Right.
I'm,
I turned to face him. He at that point faced straight ahead, which was not looking at me. And he proceeded to tell me, he said, "Well, she was a tenant in one of the rent houses, and I tried to help her, probably too much." And I'm thinking, you think?
he's giving her
Um,
money or something, probably.
she
She's not
had,
paying her rent.
right, right. She didn't have custody of her 3 children. Her mother had custody, and he was trying to help her get custody of her children. Um, and I would imagine there was quite an issue with the rent. They got creative about that, I guess. But at any rate, he proceeded to tell me that she had gone to jail for, I don't know, bad checks or shoplifting or something. And
Wow.
when she was in jail,
Oh, geez.
she she had asked if her friends could stay at the rental house and take care of her dog. And he said that didn't work out because they trashed the house and they were on drugs. And oh, by the way, she is probably on drugs too. And oh, by the way, she's gay. And I'm thinking, wow, what do I know about this lady? I'm
Wow.
going down a laundry list of things like,
So you
whew,
must have felt some relief, like, okay, she's crazy. My husband was doing a good deed. She's nuts and she's just trying to get some, like she's crazy. So it's not him,
yeah.
it's her.
So I said to him, "Well, she says she's having an affair with you," or I don't know how I put it, but he said, um, "Well," and he admitted that they'd been involved sexually,
Hmm.
but that it had ended. And he said, "In fact, I talked to her today, and she said that she even tried to tell me you were on the phone." And I said, "I was on the phone." At which point he started scrolling through his phone to see what time that call had been.
That's weird. That's a
It,
different kind of a brain, right?
well, it was, there's a lot more to it, but just suffice it to say that the man I knew or thought I knew somewhere disappeared in that
I
process.
mean, 50 years total,
Um,
right? You met when
mhm.
you were 15 and it was like puppy
We
love,
met when we were 14, actually.
okay?
Yeah,
But you were
yeah,
like boyfriend and girlfriend at 15.
yes,
So
yeah.
he was the only man that you really ever loved. And I mean, you guys got married at what? How old were you when you got married?
20. We were married at 20.
Lord.
Yeah, we were both in school.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, which my parents married at 19. I was born when they were 20. Um,
So how old were you can I ask how old you were when you got divorced? Is that, or
I
do
was
you,
64,
wow.
64. Yeah.
Okay. So you are a saint.
Oh, no.
Yes, you are. I'm looking at you. You know why I'm saying that? Because
Oh, no.
anyone that watches this who is one of the women in Facebook, there are thousands of people that go through agony like this. We go through heartbreak. We go through, how could this have happened to me? What did I
Mm.
do with my whole life? What am I going to do now? Like, how could, what? I mean, massive confusion. And
Oh, I
some
went through
people,
all of it. Yeah.
yeah, some people never come out of it, especially they will start using their age as an excuse
Yeah.
to give up, to hate everyone, to die in misery, right? I mean, I'm
Oh,
serious.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So tell us how you, I know we're going to run out of time. Are you okay?
I'm
Okay,
okay.
we're
Yeah.
okay. So tell me um, how you lift, well, just go on. Tell me whatever you feel like sharing.
One of the primary motivators for me doing what I do now,
Mhm.
which is help other women recover and rebuild their lives after divorce, particularly divorce after a long-term marriage,
Mhm.
was that about 3 weeks into this process, I shared my story with a coworker. And in front of me, as far as I knew, she was happily married. She erupted. I mean, she had a total meltdown in front of me. She started shaking, her face got all red. She cried.
Oh,
She
wow.
said, "How could he do this to you? You don't deserve that. Nobody deserves to be treated that way." And I'm like, "This is my divorce, honey."
Did I trigger something in you, darling? Yeah.
Obviously, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and she shared with me that 9 or 10 years before that, her husband had left her for another woman, humiliated her, spent their bank account, and then she'd taken him back 3, 4 months later.
Oh,
But she felt like their relationship had never healed. And since then, I knew she had so many health problems. She'd gained a whole lot of weight. She had all kinds of issues, digestive issues, back problems, all kinds of pain. And she said, "I know it's all because I hold all that inside." And I thought, good Lord, I cannot end up like that. I won't end up like that. I can't. And so I kind of went on a quest. How do you heal? How do you not just go on with your life? Because
right.
people can do that. You can bury things enough and band-aid them enough that you can go through your daily routine, you can go to work, you can do all kinds of stuff, but life happens. Divorce is not the only bad thing that happens in your life. And as stressors and different things pile on, at some point, you get a straw that breaks the camel's back.
Absolutely.
And I started seeing this with so many people. I would go out with friends from high school or something who had been divorced maybe 30 years. And it would trigger, my story would trigger them to the point where we might end up having an afternoon where we're, laughing and being sarcastic and, calling our exes bad words and things. And I would come away from that and think, that is just so empty. I can't stand that.
Yeah.
I can't, to this day, when you mentioned the Facebook groups,
I know.
It's so toxic.
Yeah.
It's so toxic. I can hardly stand to go into those groups because there's so much pain and there's so much wallowing.
Yep.
I just, I don't want to say to people, get over it, because you can't. Time alone does not heal this. There is a process and you do have to address it. It takes work.
Yes. Yes.
Grief is,
Grief. Yes. And I agree with you that, you can feed the monster, or you can heal yourself
yeah,
and build a new life. So this is where I'm going to move this a little more in the direction, because I know we don't have forever. I honestly, Mary Jo, I'd like to have you come back. I know that there will be some opportunities for you to actually do a workshop or whatever it is you do
yeah,
as we go, as this audience grows and we have the ability to serve more people. I'd love to have you do that. Everything you're doing is so needed, but we don't have a lot of time left for this
sure.
today. So where I'd like to take this, though, is share a little bit. So you have a book, and then tell us what you are doing for your business right now to help and serve these ladies. And let's talk about that for a minute.
When I went on my own healing journey, and I discovered the process that actually did help me heal. I went through Grief Recovery Institute training, and became a grief recovery specialist, because I found that process helped me just about more than anything. I actually put together a whole program that incorporates grief recovery. It takes a look at healing the past, stabilizing the present, looking at things that you might want to address. Are you living in a safe environment? Are you is the job you have now what you want to continue to do? Does it support you? Are you adequately protected insurance wise? I mean, there's a lot of different things to look at. How is your health? Are you protecting your health? What do you want to do and be in the future? And who are you really? Because a lot of times, especially when you've been married a long time, it isn't that you bury who you are, but you morph who you are based on your relationships. And sometimes you've never allowed yourself to really take a look at your true identity, which does not depend on any human relationship. So this process goes through all of that. And the feedback I've gotten from the women who've gone through my program has been very, very good. It is transformative. I knew it worked for me, but boy, is it gratifying to find out that it works. It works.
Oh, so needed. I love this. And absolutely, I'm sure every woman can relate to this. that we're so good at meeting the needs of others and becoming what they need us to be. And we don't consciously lose ourselves in that, but unconsciously we just keep doing what's necessary. We move from girlfriend to wife to mother to business owner, whatever, all the roles.
Yeah.
So yes, this sounds really lovely, really, I don't know if lovely is the right word, but I'll tell you, when I was grieving from a trauma that I experienced years ago, I did not know about grief counseling. And
Yeah.
when I finally understood what was going on, like, grief is a very pervasive
Mm.
emotion. And to have someone to assist with that process, I would say, is not just helpful, it's necessary. And so I'm very thrilled with what you're doing, and I'm glad that you're going to come back and teach a workshop, or I'd love to have you on a
I'd
panel with
love
some
to.
others too. This is how you move. This is the bridge that opens the way to a life beyond what people realize. I mean, you mentioned that about yourself. You said it was all worth it. Like, I don't know if you
Yeah.
said it was worth it, but the good that's come
Yeah.
out of it is so, so good. So maybe we could end on speaking a little bit to that, like this full circle experience, and then we definitely will have you back again.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we have to recognize that we're not defined by our tragedies. I am not my divorce. If you're walking along the beach and you step on a nail, you don't say, ouch, I'm a nail. But so many times we allow ourselves to be defined by what happens to us. And so we become victims. And that's almost a cliche. But I want women to understand that their true value doesn't depend on what they've done, what they haven't done, who has done what to them, or what they've, any hurt that's been inflicted on them, or any hurt that they've inflicted on anybody else. They are loved and valued by God. And that's something that sometimes we go through our whole lives without learning. And I don't want to be preachy about it, but it is something that I had to discover for myself. And if you get that, you can go through anything. So
Wow.
I want to help. I mean, the title of my book is You Are Still Beloved.
Mm.
And that's my message. If I can get one thing across, it's that your life, you may think it's not worth living. You may think things are so bad right now that you absolutely cannot make it through one more day, one more hour, one more minute. Things come to pass in our lives, but they do pass. And you have a purpose for as long as you have breath in you, and you're created for a purpose. And you need to stick around and find out what that is, because there is joy.
Yeah.
There is joy beyond the sorrow. My mother said to me when I was going through my whole divorce process, and God bless her, she's 90 today.
Oh,
Yes, happy
amazing.
birthday.
Happy birthday. What's her name?
Jo
Happy
Rennert.
birthday, Joanne. She can watch this. And know
But
that we
she,
were honoring her and celebrating her. Amazing that she was there for you. I mean, that's a miracle blessing.
it is a miracle and a great blessing. My dad had died the year before. Um, he died in December, and I learned about my husband's infidelity in November the following year. And my mother said to me when I told her, she said, you know, I was ready to move on and be with your dad. She said, I had made that decision, but she said, you need me and I'm going to stick
Oh
around.
my gosh.
Isn't that
Amazing.
awesome? Is it? I am so blessed. I mean, how many women my age still have their mothers
Yeah.
and have them in a capacity
Yes.
that, wow, yeah.
Oh gosh, I have so many more questions for you that are just flooding my mind, but we don't have time today. We'll have to do a part two. And,
Oh, I look forward to that. This has been
yes, you are
delightful.
just so
Thank you.
delightful, and I appreciate so much the model that you are for others, and opening the door and building the bridge. And your message is so beautiful and so heartfelt and so transparent and authentic, and the value that you are bringing to this world. I mean, I truly believe that women, I don't care how old you are, but
Right.
because I work mostly with women like in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s,
Mhm.
I really do believe we were made for this time, or this time was made for us.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when you shift that in your mind, everything changes. And oh,
Mhm.
what you are bringing is so, so, so valuable. So thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for the choices you have made, the decisions you've made, the stepping forward and the reaching out and just being open. And Mary Jo, I really appreciate you taking your time to be here. And we're going to close this out today, but so many valuable messages for the ladies and for our audience. And we will be back.
Oh, I am so honored to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Mary Jo. You have a beautiful day, and I will say goodbye for now.
Thanks again.
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to cut it off there. And I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, I'm late now. I have to run. This was spectacular.
Oh,
You're great.
thank you
So
so much.
we'll put you on the May panel. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And
Yeah.
you just let me know. Do you know if you don't have to tell me now, but I need to know if you prefer Friday or Saturday, and if you would like to teach and be on a panel, or one or the other. Either way, you can do whatever you
Oh, I can teach and be on the panel, and either day
love it.
works for me.
Okay, so I think what I will do then, I'm going to have there's another colleague of mine that is a grief counselor that I think would be great to be on that panel. And then I'll pull in somebody that's like, might spice up our conversation a bit.
Great.
Like me,
Great.
I'll moderate. No, I'm kidding. Okay,
Awesome.
have a beautiful day. There will be 3 of you. Thank you so much, Mary Jo, and
Thank
I will
you.
talk with you soon.
I
Okay,
look forward to it. Thanks so
yeah,
much, Michelle.
bye.
Take care.